All right, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to the September meeting of Subways and Buses. Sorry that we are so late. We are honored to have with us the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of our parent authority, the fabulous Tom Prendergast. Thank you for joining us. He's here to make a special award to one of our most amazing employees. I would also like to introduce to you our new board member, John Malloy, who was appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate over the summer at the recommendation of the Nassau County Executive. John lives in Wantagh and is a very distinguished engineer. Welcome, John, to this committee and the board. Welcome to unpaid public service. You are at least in good company around the table. It's nice having you. Are there any public speakers? No. Hearing none, I'm now going to recognize our current chair and our president of the Transit Authority, who is going to make a presentation with Tom and myself to a very special employee. All of our 45,000 employees are very special, but you will see that this is the most remarkable of them all. Carmen?
Yes, sir. Let's. I think what would be best if we go into the circle here. Yeah, bring Tom up. Okay. Mr. Merrick, can you join me for a minute, please? Take your time. Take your time. How are you doing today? First of all, it's an honor for me to have this opportunity to make this presentation this morning. You don't get to do this many times in your career, so I'm very, very honored. Here with us today is Mr. Thomas Merrick. Thomas is an amazing individual whose career goes back to 1948. And could you turn around, Mr. Merrick, to face the audience? His career goes back to 1948 when he joined New York City Transit as a station clerk. He's been with us for 65 years.
How many?
65 years. In 1996, no, he's been with us for 65 years, and I guess I'm allowed to tell your age. There's no secret in that at this point, is it? 91 years old. Mr. Merrick's finally decided just recently that it's time to retire, and so we are blessed to have him here today. Not only has his career just been a remarkable career, and he's helped so many people in transit over the years, but his career even goes back even before that, when he was part of the United States Army in the Second World War, having fought in both France and in Italy. He was part of the renowned Buffalo Infantry Group, right? The Buffalo Infantry Group? That's right, and actually fought in the war as a, you were a gunner, right? A howitzer gunner?
Battery clerk.
There you go. Remarkable career. So we're honored to have him here today, and what I'd like to do is read a citation that the governor of New York wants us to present to Mr. Merrick this morning. So I'm going to ask you to step here, if you will, Mr. Merrick. And I'll read this citation. Whereas the citizens of New York are its greatest resource, we welcome the opportunity to pay tribute to exceptional individuals whose lives and achievement have had a significant impact on others, both personally and professionally. In particular, the Empire State is proud to bestow official commendations upon those who have served their fellow New Yorkers with dedication and excellence. And whereas it is therefore appropriate to recognize Thomas H. Merrick, U.S. Army veteran, whose distinguished service and valuable contributions as an employee of the MTA, New York City Transit, Department of Subways, Division of Station Environment and Operations, will be long remembered and appreciated. Whereas since 1948 and throughout his impressive career of over 65 years, Thomas Merrick has demonstrated a careful attention to detail, performing all of his duties in an exemplary manner with a commendable attendance and operating record in the following positions: railroad clerk, assistant station supervisor, and currently as a superintendent. Whereas through maintenance upgrades, beautification, and enhancement of the safety of New York City's subway stations, Tom Merrick has rendered faithful and conscientious service to the public, helping to improve their daily quality of life and build a stronger Empire State, earning him the gratitude of all who had the good fortune to know and work with him. And whereas Tom's friends and colleagues gathered today to honor and celebrate the highlights of his 6.5 decade career, on behalf of all New Yorkers, I'm pleased to join in grateful acknowledgement of this remarkable tenure and successful life. Now, therefore, I, Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby confer the special citation upon Thomas H. Merrick, with best wishes for all the enjoyment of a much-deserved, relaxing retirement for many years to come. Thank you so much.
All right, Carmen, you still have the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do some business. The minutes of our July meeting, if those of you remember, are annexed to the beginning of our materials. Does anyone have any additions or corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them. Thank you. All in favor? The minutes are adopted. Are there any changes to the work plan?
Mr. Chairman, there are none.
Okay. Now back to you, Carmen.
Good morning. Senior Vice President of Subways, who will begin with the monthly operating report.
Good morning. The subway performance results for the 12-month period ending July of 2013 are as follows. Regarding subway weight assessment and on-time performance, system-wide weekday weight assessment for the past 12 months improved 0.8% as compared to last year's average. Terminal OTP over the same period decreased slightly. The 12-month average was down 1.6% as compared to the same period the previous year. As we provided service in July, we continued to face operational constraints, such as record-breaking heat, one of the longest consecutive heat waves lasting over 8 days in a row, one of the largest ones we had in years, as well as simultaneously undertaking critical maintenance and commencing major track, signal, and station improvement projects following Superstorm Sandy. Although this was a tough operational month, we continue to reinforce and refine our service delivery tools and strategies for central control, which enables us to provide smoother service and more regular intervals of trains even as we manage through these incidents. In addition, we continue to work towards improving and scheduling our critical maintenance in order to minimize the impact to our train service. Regarding MDBF, in July, MDBF was 114,457 miles, down 12.1% from 130,235 in July of 2012. The 12-month average was 160,140 miles, down 3.7% from 166,229 miles for the preceding 12 months. Moving on to key performance indicators, our system-wide service KPI was 81.8%, down 0.5% in July of 2012. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 91.4%, up 0.7% in July of 2012. The Staten Island Railway PES KPI was 92.7%, up 1.9% in July of 2012. Regarding Fast Track continues to enable the efficient completion of many maintenance tasks by allowing broad track access in a designated service corridor. There have been 19 Fast Track occasions this year through the end of August, out of the 29 planned for 2013. Major work completed included nearly 1.5 million pounds of debris removed from the tracks, nearly 498,000 feet of track scraped, nearly 210,000 square feet of station environment painted, and nearly 164,000 linear feet of structural inspections were performed. The estimated productivity value of this work is approximately $13 million year to date. For a Superstorm Sandy update, we continue to experience ongoing equipment failures as a result of Superstorm Sandy, which is a significant operational concern. Progress on recovery, which continues both in the under-river tubes and with other assets. In the Greenpoint tube on the G, 8 weekends of work have resulted in the repair of over 3,000 track feet and 60,000 feet of cables installed. Outages of the Greenpoint tube are also being used to improve our stations, with 95,000 square feet of ceilings painted and columns at Greenpoint and 21st Street stations, and 27 stairways that were rehabbed. As planned, the Montague Street tube on the R line was taken out of service on August 3rd, and intense around-the-clock work is currently underway, with heavy demolition of duct banks on one of the tracks at 30% completion. And that is my report for the month.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. Yes, sir.
Joe or Carmen, now that the Montague tube is closed, does it make sense, and you've probably thought about this, to show the R train as two different routes in the weight assessment, you know, the Continental to Whitehall versus the Court Street to 95th Street, maybe a north R and a south R, so that we can see what's happening in a more clear manner?
It's a good question. I think what we'll do is I'll bring it back to Peter.
This data is for July, so that predates that, but we can look at that. We can look at splitting them out. On weekends, it's a single route.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
All right, on to our bus division with, oh, I'm sorry, Chuck, I didn't see you.
I'm just shy. Is there anything that is available by way either of explanation or plan to deal with it? In July and again in August, the wait time, the wait assessment on lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 continued to decrease. Pages 3.3, 3.40 over the prior year. So that if you look at the numbers like 71 and 73%, 3/4 of the time, roughly, people are waiting longer than you had anticipated. What, if anything, is there that we can do about it? Because we now have 2 months of it in a trend, maybe a trend.
There's a few things that we're looking at. You know, we're in a critical time right now where we're performing some critical maintenance as a recovery to Superstorm Sandy. What I've tasked the team to do is to look at not only the current schedules, but to also look at emergency response when we do have delays, but also to look at how we plan our work. So I have a team that's looking at how we can put together a look ahead for our general maintenance work and see how we're impacting service. There is currently work being done on the schedules for the 2 through 5. You have to realize on the IRT, you have 2 chokehold points, Nostrand Junction and 149, that appear to be giving us some problems. So we're looking at that schedule right now, but I think it's a combination of multiple things. It's not one answer to the whole situation. So it's planning work better, it's responding to the emergency much quicker, and it's looking at the overall schedule, and we're doing that.
My concern is we now have 2 months. We could have looked at it on a monthly basis previously, but we have 2 months of it, and I wonder if we're getting a trend here, and there's a problem you're going to have to deal with in the 1 through 5, or what is it?
If I can just clarify, it's actually a 12-month rolling average, so it's August of 12 to July of 13, so we don't have August data yet, so this is looking at the influence of July on the 12-month rolling average. last July of 12 was actually a very, very good month, much better in terms of weight assessment than we had been historically. So this July was a little bit lower than the previous year, but it's still better than the years before that. Some of which, talking to Joe, I think we can relate to the heat, which was not bad in July of 12, but was particularly onerous in 13 and caused some incidents that affected service all around.
All right. Thank you, Joe Leader. We're counting on your leadership here, since you're so aptly named, not to disappoint Chuck and to make sure that we do the best we can on those lines. For the bus operations section of the operations report, we're going to turn to Tom Del Sorbo, but before he gets a chance to speak, Carmen would like to say a word or two about an upcoming event.
Well, first of all, wait, twice in one day. First of all, this is Tom's very last committee meeting. Tom is he's earned the right and has served New York City Transit for many, many years, and he is
He's going to the Port Authority?
Who knows? We don't know that. But Tom is going to retire later on this week, and so he's somebody that's just been a great member of the team. He's worked in so many different areas and has helped us with strategy and budgets and just helped us in terms of moving our service over the years. You'll be a great loss to this organization, but we're very, very happy for you and wish you well going forward.
Thank you very much, Carmen. I just wanted to say thank you. On my behalf, I'd like to thank both current and past board members for their strong support of bus operations over the past 8 years that I've worked with the committee. Our accomplishments could not have been achieved without your leadership and your dedication to public transit. It's been my absolute pleasure to work with many of you, and I just wish you success and the very best in the future as we continue to serve the region's 8 million plus passengers every day. Thanks again for everything.
You want to pass on your update for this month, or do you want to give it anyway?
I will give it since I found out this morning I was giving it. Okay, today I'll cover performance highlights for fixed route, bus, and paratransit operations for the month of July 2013, as well as the past 12 months through July. I'll start with fleet reliability. For the month of July, combined bus MDBF was 4,229 miles, or 5.2%. better than compared to July 2012 levels. When looking at our performance over a rolling 12-month period through July, combined MDBF was 5,094 miles, or a 27% improvement when compared to the prior 12-month period. Next, I'll talk about service delivery indicators for the month of July. The percent of completed trips was 99.2%, which is up 0.1%. Scheduled pullouts for AM and PM peaks were 99.7 and 99.9 respectively, both again higher than July 2012 levels. When looking at service performance over a rolling 12-month period, the percent of completed trips was 99.2, which is a 0.7% improvement. AM pullouts were at 99.7 and PM were at 99.9, both higher than the prior 12 months. Moving over to paratransit, in July 2013, there was an increase of 0.9% in the total number of accessoride requests for service when compared to the prior July. For the full 12-month period, requests for service fell by 2.2% over the previous 12 months. No-shows, passenger no-shows and accessoride in both July 2013 when compared to the prior July as well as the previous 12 months have been flat within 0.1%. And finally, in paratransit, I'd like to provide an update regarding the procurement of paratransit vehicles. As we discussed in a previous committee meeting, VPG ceased production of the MV1, which is an accessible vehicle that was intended to replace diesel-powered lift-equipped buses. American General, who had been VPG's sole assembler of the MV1, recently announced that it will now own and operate the MV1 business. They're forming a new company called Mobility Ventures, which will acquire the assets of VPG, and they'll resume production of the vehicles in November. We anticipate receiving the balance of our order, which is 114 MV1s. And that completes the bus operations report.
Thank you. Even though this is your last meeting, we'll allow limited cross-examination. Chuck?
I have just one question. If I'm reading this correctly, on page 3.25, there have been there has been an increase in bus collisions and injuries in regional and New York City transit buses. Is there any explanation for that? And am I reading it first correctly?
You are reading it correctly. We could answer it now. Cheryl's going to talk about it in the safety section, so.
I can answer it. We talked a little bit about it last time, that we have an increase in the accidents regarding our bus operators that are 1 to 3 years new bus operators. So they have developed a new training program and put it in place that will be starting up. It started up this month, and everyone that finishes the probationary period on their 13th month, they will go into this added training.
And you think that in the relatively near future we will see a decline? Because it seems to be increasing each and every month.
Yes.
The injuries as well as the collisions.
We feel the collisions will go down.
Thank you, Tom, for a splendid report and for a wonderful career with us. Thanks very much. Cheryl, I think we're going to hang in with you here and go to safety.
The safety results for subways were as follows. In the month of June, the accident rate per million customers decreased by 3.1% when compared to June 2012. The subway customer accident rate increased by 3.6% over the previous 12-month period. There were 76 confirmed fires for the month of July, an increase of 2.7% from July 2012. However, over the last 12 months, fires decreased by 0.7%. 100% of all fires were categorized as being low or average in severity for the month of July. The employee lost time accident rate increased by 5.4% for the Department of Subways during the month of July 2013 as compared to July 2012, and increased by 3.3% for the rolling 12-month period. Safety results for NYCT Bus and MTA Bus through July 2013 were as follows. The combined 12-month rate for bus collisions per million miles traveled increased by 7.6% through July 2013. Bus collision injuries per million miles, however, decreased by 11.5% for the same period. The combined 12-month rate for bus customer accidents per million customers decreased by 13.8% through July 2013. The bus customer accident injuries per million customers also decreased by 11.6% for the same period. The employee lost time accident rate decreased by 12.5% for NYCT Bus and increased by 57.7% for MTA Bus for the month of July 2013 as compared to July 2012. The rolling 12-month rate was down 8.1% for NYCT Bus and 19.1% for MTA Bus. The NYCT employee lost time accident rate decreased by 4.4% for the month of July 2013 versus July 2012. Additionally, the rolling 12-month rate was down 2.1% from the previous year.
Thank
questions?
you, Cheryl. Some pretty good statistics there. Let's see if we can do the same for a crime. Chief Joseph Fox is here. Joe?
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. During the month of July, we showed an increase of 3 crimes, or 1.3%, with 230 major felonies compared to 227 in July of 2012. We then had a decrease of 30 crimes, or 12.7% in August, 206 felonies compared to 236 in August 2012. We had an average of 7.4 major felonies a day in July 2013 compared to 7.3 in the same month in 2012. August, we had a daily average of 6.6 major felonies, a decrease of 1 crime compared to the 7.6 crimes per day in August 2012. These are encouraging trends, and the members of our Transit Bureau are working to sustain this decrease through various initiatives. Of the 436 major felonies for both July and August, 35.9% were committed in Manhattan, 15% in Queens, 33% in Brooklyn, and 15.8% in the Bronx. Our quality of life enforcement continues to help us in reducing our overall crime in the transit system. A good example is the enforcement of New York City transit rules and regulations. On Monday, August 19th, police officers Jonathan Correa and Michael Leone, Transit District 4, saw a man blocking the turnstiles at the Union Square station. As they approached him, he threw a piece of paper on the floor. The officers retrieved the paper, opened it up, and saw that it read, and I quote, "You have 30 seconds to hand over the money before I use my gun in here, exclamation point. Try me," end quote. They handcuffed the subject, searched him, and found stolen property they took from a local store. During the investigation that followed by the NYPD's Major Case Unit, he was identified as the perpetrator of an attempted bank robbery in the Bronx. He's currently lodged in Rikers Island and under investigation for other bank robberies. Officer Correa and Leone took action on what some may consider a minor infraction, blocking and littering, and by doing so they arrested a bank robbery suspect. As we all know, school is back in session. We take great pride in our responsibility of safely delivering a portion of the 1 million students who travel to and from school every day using our system. We continue to deploy officers to prevent and address school-related conditions. Last year, this program was responsible for a 17% reduction in school-related crimes, 230 versus 280 the year before, including lowering the amount of school-related robberies from 148 to 97, a 34% reduction. We're looking to build on this success by posting officers in stations near schools and identifying locations where students congregate. In addition, we'll continue to find truants and actively identify students who are riding the trains when they should be in school and deliver them to school. We'll also continue to identify corridors that students frequently travel as safe passages, ensuring they reach their destinations safely. We look forward to continued success and another safe school year. There's a long history of cooperation between New York City Transit and the NYPD's Transit Bureau. I'd like to share 3 recent examples of this cooperative success. On Tuesday, July 30th at 9 a.m. at the Canal Street Station on the A, New York City Transit employee entered the Transit District 2 and reported that there were 2 young men who were brandishing a knife on the platform. 2 officers went to investigate and encountered a 65-year-old woman who said that the 2 had threatened her with the knife and tried to take her purse. The officers searched the station and the area, saw the subjects, and took them into custody. On Thursday, August 1st at 3 a.m. in the Howard Beach Station on the A line, a female passenger was pushed against a platform wall by a perpetrator who demanded money or sex from the victim. When the other passengers entered the station, the subject fled on an A train. The victim told the station agent what had happened, and the station agent immediately notified the police. The train that the perp fled on was identified and held at the 80th Street Station, with the doors closed, where police responded and apprehended the man, who was still on board the train. Melvin J. Adams has 14 prior arrests, including drug possession and robbery. On Monday, August 19th, while on board an E-train, a man grabbed a female victim from behind. The perp lifted her skirt and touched her inappropriately. The victim told the conductor, who was able to alert our officers, who responded and placed him under arrest. Each one of these incidents show how New York City Transit personnel, whether it's a cleaner, a station agent, or a train operator, help our Transit Bureau officers keep our subway system safe every day. I often speak of the cooperation among the various NYPD bureaus as well. On Tuesday, August 27th, at 3:50 a.m., Officer Dave Williams of the 6th Precinct in Brooklyn was doing a station visit at the 9th Avenue station on the D line. He saw a man sitting on the platform with bloodstains on his shirt and scratches on his neck. As he investigated further, he found the man to be in possession of a loaded .45 caliber firearm. Officer Williams arrested Dove Altman, who is currently in custody awaiting his next scheduled court appearance. On Tuesday, July 9th, at 11:50 a.m., Officer Harris Correa of the 107 Precinct in Queens, while assigned to a critical response vehicle post in Manhattan, he conducted a subway check at the Grand Central Station. While on the platform, Officer Correa saw what at first looked like one man inappropriately crowding was standing too close to another man. He observed further and was able to determine that the man had actually picked the pocket of the victim, removing his wallet. He arrested Eugene Davis, who also had property from 2 other victims. Further investigation by the robbery squad resulted in Davis being charged with 3 additional cases. He's currently in custody. On Tuesday, September 3rd at 12:30 a.m., officers Michael McCarthy and Daniel Bosco, assigned to Transit Bureau Manhattan Impact, were in the vicinity of Lenox Avenue and West 133rd Street when they were approached by a group of victims who had just been robbed at gunpoint. The officers, this happened on the street, the officers left the system, did a canvass in the area, spotted the perps, gave chase, and arrested Orlando Gonzalez and Keita Beccari. A loaded .45 caliber firearm was also recovered. During previous meetings, we've spoken of the importance of following up on those who commit the most crimes in our system. The Transit Bureau's parole stipulation includes Sergeant Kevin Cooper and his investigators monitoring these individuals and working with their parole officers. Currently, there are 60 parolees with some type of no subway stipulation added to their parole conditions. 8 of these parolees are on lifetime parole. In 2013, 8 parolees have had their parole revoked and were returned to state prison custody after violating their no subway conditions. Their photos are then made available to our officers who report their presence in the system to his or her parole officer. Sergeant Brian Giordano, police officers Kevin Lavin, Jonathan Kung, Cesar Gonzalez of Transit District 2 Anti-Crime saw one parolee, Charles Barry, who was a career pickpocket with 109 arrests, 68 of them in the transit system. They saw him 2 times at Penn Station between August 8th and August 18th. Barry is permanently banned from using our system. The officers confirmed his identity, notified his parole officer, and thanks to those officers taking the time to study the photos of those in our stipulation program and the dedication to duty, Charles Barry's parole was revoked on August 20th, 2013, and he's returned to state prison. Thank you, Tom, Carmen, and Joe, and the members of the board, and any questions or suggestions, I welcome.
Thank you, Chief Joe Fox. You know, everybody on your staff has such descriptive names. Leader, Fox. Don't we have anybody named Smith?
We do.
Oh, yeah. Before we hear from Fred, for those of you who think it's important, Carmen will discuss finance.
But we have some questions.
Oh, some questions? Yes, Alan.
Okay, well, first of all, again, thank you, Chief Fox. The parole follow-up is music to many of our ears here for what this board has been discussing for quite some time, keeping people who commit, whose occupation it is to commit crimes in the subway, out of the subway is an important step, and thank you for following up on that and your diligence in that effort.
Thank you for bringing it up often.
Secondly, not wanting to kick a man when he's down, on the radio last week I heard there was a program in Brooklyn to vacate minor warrants at a church sponsored by the Brooklyn District Attorney, and one of the examples that they were giving was of minor crimes or offenses that would be occurring would be jumping the turnstile as part of their plea for people to come in. And I was certainly, as I'm sure many of you are, by my saying this now and my hearing this repeatedly on the radio, I think that that's a terrible message for a public official to be putting out there, particularly when it may cost us somewhere between $60 and $100 million in lost revenue. I would hope that we would be in contact with the new district attorney of Brooklyn and reaffirm the impact that these kind of offenses have on our system, and the hope that they'll be diligent in working with the other district attorneys and our squad in putting an end to this kind of lawlessness. Thank you.
Good idea, Alan. Andrew?
Chief, congratulations to you and all your people on the great job you're doing. When a condition of parole is that you cannot use the transit system, does that apply to buses and the commuter rail system as well as the subways, or just the subways?
Our program is just the subways.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, finance? Anybody
Thank
else?
you.
Finance.
Preliminary July 2013 transit fare box revenue was $347.7 million, 3.7 million or 1.1% above forecasts. Year-to-date revenues were $6.6 million, 0.3% above forecasts. The average non-student fare in July of 2013 was $1.78. In constant 1996 dollars, the July average fare fell from $1.38 in 1996 to $1.15 in 2013.
So it's 20% cheaper to use the subway if you're an average rider now than in 1996? My favorite statistic.
Yes.
Oh.
Preliminary July 2013 operating expenses before depreciation and OPEB exceeded forecast by 3.3 million or 0.3%. Labor expenses underran by 0.7 million or 0.1% due mainly to lower health and welfare. OPEB current expenses resulting from lower rates and lower payroll expenses due largely to vacancies, partially offset by higher overtime expenses. Non-labor expenses were above forecast by 4 million, or 2.8%, mostly attributable to the unfavorable timing of expenses and higher claim processing. Year-to-date operating expenses were favorable to forecast by 17.3 million, or 0.4%, including labor expense underruns of 24.8 million, or 0.7%, higher non-labor expenses of 7.5 million, or 0.8%, due mainly to lower health and welfare, OPEB current expenses resulting from lower rates, and lower payroll expenses due largely to vacancies, partially offset by higher overtime expenses. Moving on to ridership, preliminary ridership, July of 2013. New York City Transit ridership totaled 196.1 million, 0.9% above forecast. July 2013 average weekday ridership results compared to 2012 were as follows. Subway ridership was 5.2 million, an increase of 0.4%, and the highest of any July in over 45 years. New York City Transit local bus ridership was 2 million, a decrease of 0.1%. New York City Transit express bus ridership was 40,000, a decrease of 2.5%. Paratransit ridership was 29,000, a decrease of 1.8%. It's too early for the July preliminary results, so they're not available for our meeting today. Oh, I'm sorry, for August. So with that, there's no questions. I'll turn it back over to Tom Del Sorbo.
Any questions? All right, Tom, you're back on.
Yes. Year-to-date, for MTA Bus Finance, year-to-date July 2013 fare box revenues were 114.4 million, or 500,000, 0.4% better than the mid-year forecast. The average non-student fare was $1.76 in July, which is up 7.3% from July 2012. Year-to-date July 2013 actual non-reimbursable accrued expenses were 2.4 million, or 0.7% below the mid-year forecast. The performance against forecast represents a combination of favorable labor expenses of 2.2 million and favorable non-labor expense underruns of 200,000. Labor expenses were favorable due to the timing of health and welfare and other fringe benefit costs, and partially offset by higher overtime levels. Higher overtime costs were due in July to the July heat wave, increased maintenance costs, the accelerated completion of defects found on scheduled inspections, and some residual impacts from Sandy. The favorable non-labor expense underrun was primarily due to lower than forecasted spending and the favorable timing of payments for maintenance contracts and fuel, with a slight offset by higher maintenance material costs. Moving on to ridership, preliminary year-to-date July 2013 ridership was 72.8 million. Again, that's 400,000 or 0.5 better than the mid-year forecast. Average weekday local bus ridership for July 2013 was 340,000, which is an increase of 1.3% from prior July. Preliminary July 2013 average weekday express bus ridership was 32,000, which is a decrease of 5.9% from July 2012. Preliminary July 2013 average weekend local bus ridership was 385,000, or an increase of 1% from July 2012. Finally, of note, I want to point out that the overall average Saturday and overall average Sunday ridership was the third highest and highest, respectively, for the month of July since the creation of MTA Bus, continuing a growth that we're seeing, a growth trend in off-peak ridership. And that completes the MTA Bus finance side.
All right, questions for Tom? This is the last chance. Chuck?
Is there any reason why MTA Bus and New York City Bus cannot be combined, or is there any benefit in combining them?
Well, I think it's a big legal question in terms of the combination. As it stands now, the management structures have been combined since 2008 when it also included Long Island Bus. So effectively we manage the two agencies, Department of Buses and Transit and MTA Bus, as a single entity. Everybody here really has dual roles.
All right, now we recognize Fred Smith on our capital program.
Good morning.
Sorry about what I said before, Fred.
That's okay, no problem. Looking at capital program results, commitments for the month of July 2013 totaled $121 million. Major awards included the replacement of 11 existing hydraulic elevators. That'll be at 6 locations throughout the system, 2 in the Bronx, 2 in Manhattan, and 2 in Queens. Construction for a new station at Arthur Kill Road on Staten Island. 4 projects on the annual track and switch program throughout the system. Replacement of selected traction power cables at the Central Substation in Midtown Manhattan. That's the substation that provides power to both 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue services. And replacement of 2 escalators at the Roosevelt Avenue 74th Street Station Complex on the IND Queens Boulevard line in Queens. Completions for the month was a total of $20 million, and that was part of the in-house track and switch reconstruction program projects. That completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Fred? Alan?
I'm not sure if this belongs here or at CPOC, but 2 of the local council members in Staten Island have been complaining that they put money in for surveillance equipment at the stations on the CERT. Do you know anything about the progress of
Yeah, there is
the
a project.
implementation?
Yes, that project is moving. That's using those gentlemen's contribution plus some operating money. And that project is underway. Materials have been ordered. And upon delivery of the materials, the installation work will proceed.
What would your timeline, what's your expected timeline?
I
to
believe
complete?
installation should start probably in late November. It's a 6 to 8 week, I believe, delivery schedule for the signs.
Chuck?
What are the 2 Bronx improvements?
Pelham Bay, 2 elevators, and Simpson Street.
Terrific, thanks.
All right, are we ready for procurements? You going to do them, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Good morning. The procurement package, which presents New York City Transit, MTA Bus, MTA CC procurements, includes 38 actions totaling $610.6 million in expenditures. Normally, I would highlight the more important procurement actions, but this month, I would like to walk you through a brief presentation about New York City Transit Superstorm Sandy related procurements. Paper copies have been provided for each of you. Page 1 in the overview. In response to Superstorm Sandy, New York City Transit has conducted over 400 procurement actions utilizing over 120 contractors and vendors. These firms were selected through a variety of procurement methods, including formal sealed bids, requests for proposals, informal competition, task order competitions, sole source awards, and additional work orders. Next page. The Sandy-related procurement actions can be broken into 4 major categories, as listed in this slide. I'll discuss all of these categories in a bit more detail in the following slides. But the 4 categories are previously approved or ratified by the board for $53.5 million, board approval not required, 82.3, ratification by the September board, which I'll go into significant detail on, it's $126 million, and then approval by the September board for an estimated $250 million, all for $511.8 million. The first category is Sandy procurement actions previously approved or ratified by the board. There are two actions listed here. The first is the cleanup and rebuild at Broad Channel Rockaways in the Queens for an estimated $53 million, which was presented in to the March 2013 board meeting. The second action is disaster recovery services for Transit's data storage network, which was presented to the June 2013 board for ratification. On page 4, in this next category, the Sandy procurement actions not requiring board approval. New York City Transit has to date awarded $82.3 million of Sandy-related procurements that do not require board approval. The actions include formal sealed bids. These were for about $13.7 million. They involved the replacement of paratransit vehicles, 221, and 21 armored vehicles, both sets of which were damaged due to the flooding. Goods and services procured under existing estimated quantity contracts. This was about $12.7 million in expenditures. This was predominantly for track material, wire, cable, and tools and equipment. Task orders issued under engineering, existing engineering, and indefinite quantity contracts. This is a particularly large category here. It's about $55 million for a lot of architectural and engineering design in order to rehab and be able to put some designs in place to take care of the tubes and some of the areas that were damaged by the storm, as well as environmental cleanup and also for some temporary staffing. And the last area there is purchases, small purchases to the tune of about $850,000 for switch and signal and track material and also tools. The next category is Sandy procurement actions that are being ratified or being requested to be ratified by the September board. These procurements were conducted in accordance with the MTA President's emergency declaration or Governor Cuomo's 4 executive orders. The procurement actions authorized by the MTA Presidents, there were 139, 76 purchase actions, again primarily for cable, wire, signal switch, and track material for about $12.8 million. There was a miscellaneous service contract awarded for rail grinding at Dyer Avenue. The storm damaged our Rockaway test track, and we needed to get test track services back in for our R188 contract, so we had to do some rail grinding there in order to conduct that testing. And then there were 62 contract modifications for public works issued. This was predominantly for damage assessment, cleaning and overhauling signal and switch equipment, as well as testing and replacing cable out in the Rockaway line, Coney Island, and South Ferry.
Steve, just a quick interruption, by the way, just for the board's information. These procurements are actually before you. They start at page 5.28 of the procurement package, the ones that Steve is talking about now.
The second portion of this category, these are actions that were procured pursuant to Governor Cuomo's executive orders. There were 15 purchase contracts, again for signal and switch and track material, to the tune of about $1.2 million. We had a competitively solicited contract for the repair of the Montague Tube for $102 million. We received 8 bids on that. Miscellaneous service contract was put in place to repair some of our armored vehicles that were damaged. Miscellaneous procurements, we rented a number of pumps so that we could equip some pump cars in order to be ready for the upcoming season that we're in right now, storm season that is. And we had a public work modification. We had a limited competition here of our 3 qualified signal installers in order to do signal equipment replacement and cables at Greenpoint. Of particular note here, of the dollars that we are being asked to ratify, over 92% of the dollars were awarded through competitive means, but we had at least 2 or more bidders or providers. The last item, category entitled Sandy Procurement Action for approval by the September Board, covers 6 contracts for federally funded indefinite quantity engineering services for Sandy-related repair and resiliency projects and miscellaneous construction for an estimated $250 million. These contracts will establish a pool of consultants that will allow Transit to compete task orders for Sandy-related design and construction management services. And that completes the presentation.
All right, the competitive procurements are in Section 5 of the book. I take it that you move all of them
Yes, I do.
for adoption. Do we have questions or comments? Chuck?
I have questions about two of the competitors. With page 5.15, the Bombardier Award, how many WBE jobs and how many New York jobs are contemplated?
Well, this is these procurements here are for parts for this. I'd have to get back to you on that, but these particular items are procured solely from Bombardier.
Well, that's because one of the reasons is it is the sole pre-qualified source on the quality products. When was it pre-qualified?
There's 10,476 items that go back quite some time, go back to our R62 A classes quite a number of years ago.
Well, how do you periodically review the qualification, or is it once you're qualified, you're in forever?
No, well, actually, for the original award, you can be in forever, but we post all of these items, all 10,476, on our website. They're there 24/7 for anybody that's interested in terms of competing on these, as well as putting them in a public advertisement.
I'm not focused on that. I want to know the reason this went sole source is because they were pre-qualified. That's what it seems to indicate in the second full paragraph. And my question is, when were they pre-qualified for this, and how many others were pre-qualified, if anyone?
Well, these come off particular car classes, and this happens to be propulsion and traction motor items. So when we buy the original car, we have a tendency to replace those parts when they fail with OEM, original equipment material. This is a safety-related item. The propulsion is integral to the braking. The braking propulsion are interrelated. So while we encourage other manufacturers to come up and get qualified, because of the safety sensitivity, we find it very difficult, or that crowd or that group finds it very difficult to qualify their parts, because these are replacement parts, subcomponents, that go into higher-end assemblies. So they would have to assume the risk of safety related to this. We always encourage folks to come on, but there's a lot of testing that would have to take place before we would actually allow a contractor to just put a part into a higher-end propulsion system.
If you can, will you please give me those statistics on New York jobs and WBE, if you have them at your convenience?
Sure. Absolutely.
Let me turn to one that troubles me greatly, if I read it correctly. It is page 5.24. It is the award of 3 indefinite quantity contracts. Reading from the last paragraph. An RFP was issued in October 2012. Despite outreach attempts to get other firms to propose, only one proposal was received in response to this solicitation. So there was a proposal, correct?
Yes.
All right. The firms that purchased the RFP were then queried as to why they did not propose. And one of the reasons advanced was that they couldn't meet the goals of MBWBE goals and low markup that was imposed. At that point, you jettisoned the proposal that was made, and you went back out and you lowered the MBWE requirement.
Correct.
How, why, and on what basis? Because what you're doing is upsetting the bidding process, undermining MBWE, and I don't understand how we can do that.
Okay, I'll try to explain.
Okay.
We went out originally with a solicitation, and we ended up with one, after a fair outreach and contacting contractors and consultants in this particular area. We didn't get the expected turnout with regard to proposals. This isn't a bid, this is an RFP process. So we asked and tried to determine what was going on. Why didn't we get the expected outcome? In other words, we like competition. We certainly didn't want to move forward with just one proposal, particularly in an area where we felt we would get at least 2 or 3 or 4 proposers. What ended up happening is, after we contacted the folks, I'll say the usual suspects, those folks that pick up the bid and the proposal documents, they indicated there were a number of challenges, one of which is, in this particular case, They were a little bit confused with regard to the documents. Part of the headhunters or the temp firms looked at it like it was an A&E type contract, and some of the A&E contractors looked at it as though it was a temp contract, so they sort of both backed off, so we said we need to make that a little clearer. But many of them indicated that because these are bringing in really temps or folks, just staffing, that it was very difficult, if not almost impossible, to get firms involved, because they're just recruiting people, you know, with a particular signal expertise.
But aren't you sending a signal that when proposers want to get together and object to the MBWE quantity or goal, all they have to do is say, let's not bid, and then we can get it reduced?
No, we've been doing this for quite some time, and quite frankly, this was the first time that goals had been put on this particular contract. So we tried something new. We tried to put goals on a contract that hadn't had goals before. But the contracting community reacted to that, and I think we reacted responsibly. But we coordinated this with Michael Garner's group and DDCR, and they agreed that perhaps this is not a contract that's appropriate for goals because it's a staffing contract. But we certainly wouldn't react that way.
If I may interrupt.
Yeah.
We do work with Mr. Garner's group to set goals. And I'm not an expert in it, but I believe that part of setting goals has to do with what's available. You can't just create goals that have nothing to do with what's available in the contracting community and the workforce. This particular procurement is actually is a temporary staffing procurement because we have needs for extra staff, especially for the Sandy reconstruction. And so, we're looking for specific kinds of specialties. You can't set goals that are unrealistic. Again, we would have to ask Mr. Garner and his staff as to how those goals were ultimately set, but it appears as though we set goals that were unrealistic for the types of people that we're looking for.
That's an excellent point, Bob, because when we went and met with Michael Garner's group, we actually looked at the lists that are available, and there were no subcontractors in these areas, and that's why they moved off the goal point.
This is just headhunters. Anybody can be a headhunter, especially in these areas. And what I'm concerned about isn't the specific of this one. It's the precedent it sets that we can cause a problem here. And I would tell you that I would look askance if this does become a precedent, because you had one proposer. Was that proposer ultimately a finalist?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so you had one proposer, he or it had a proposal, and the result now is that we've diminished the amount, we've diminished the opportunity, we're creating a precedent here of the boys getting together.
I can assure you that we will not allow that to happen.
I'll take your word for that, and I accept it.
Okay.
Fred?
I'm paying careful attention to this colloquy. And Steve, I first thought that you offered an interesting and fulsome answer to a question that Mr. Merdler did not ask. Let me try to reframe the question. What was the goal that the sole responder came in with? What was the goal that is ultimately proposed to this board? And the third part of that is, what is the goal that is set out in Executive Order 10?
The goals that were originally set out in the contract were 10 and 10, M&Ws, 10 each. And now, again, through coordination with DDCR, they've been reduced to 0 on this contract. And again, I go back to what Mr. Bergen indicated, that goals are typically set after you look at the subcontractable elements and you decide that what is subcontractable and that there's an available pool of M&Ws to respond to this. This happens to be, if you look at the title, Staffing for Signal and Train Control System Projects. That's a very narrow band of subcontractors to begin with that we have a very difficult time filling in the first instance. And again, We felt it was extremely important in order to get competition on the procurement itself and select and be able to get these folks in for our signal projects that we coordinated. This was not a unilateral decision that was made by procurement by any chance.
Did the sole responder come in with 10?
Well, I can find out for you, but I don't believe they did at all.
I
No.
thought you said in here that he did.
No. I said that the goals were 10 and 10.
Yeah, but did he come in with the 10-10?
I don't believe so, but I'll
I
get
thought
back.
you say you had a proposal, one proposal was received in response to the solicitation.
Yeah, but it didn't mean that it was responsive or responsible in terms of what they had responded. And that's one of the other reasons that we looked at it, because one, we had one, and two, when we looked at the package, we know that they weren't meeting the goals anyway. But I'll get back to you with the details.
It would be good
May
to
I-
know that.
I'd like to know. May I ask a follow-up question? I noticed that ACOM disclosed information that was considered significant adverse information within the meaning of the all-agency responsibility guidelines. ACOM is all over these procurements.
Correct.
What kind of a thing, if you can disclose it?
I won't, I'll keep it high level. We discovered significant adverse information. It had to do with an ongoing industry-wide investigation of one of their wholly owned subsidiaries, Tishman. Tishman was not charged, but they or told whether or not it's the subject or target of the investigation. And there's also several other companies that have been subpoenaed to date, and the investigation is ongoing. It also has to do with some alleged dumping of contaminated waste in another area of ACOM. And we wrote this up. They gave us certainly ample responses in terms of corrective actions and cooperation, so we believe that it's worthwhile going to do business with these folks.
Let me ask my final point. Sure. Do I have your assurance that you will not use this as a precedent for any future action without first coming to the board in terms of diminishing the MWE?
Absolutely.
All right.
Any further questions on the procurements? Their motion has been made to approve them. Is there a second? Oh. Mark?
You just made, I don't think that is necessarily responsible. I think if you have a situation where you actually need to procure something for the safety and ongoing operation of the system, and it's going to take you another month to go back through the board because you are unable to address your goals in that procurement, I don't believe that on the basis of this dialogue we should have set a change in policy to the effect that you have to come back to the board.
Well, I thought I was agreeing that if I was going to diminish them, like we did here where we had them out on the street, that we would change them materially. In other words, get rid of them, that we would have to report that back.
I think you can report that back when you bring the particular procurement for approval by the board. I don't think that the additional step is, depending on the circumstances, a hard and fast rule that we should impose on the basis of the discussion this morning.
I have a suggestion.
Okay, Susan.
I understand the points made by both gentlemen and actually agree with both of them. I think it would have been helpful to have Mike Garner here to explain what, because the decision to lower them was not yours, it was his. And I think it would have been helpful to me to have heard what decision process he went through in order to lower it.
Would there be any harm in adjourning this to the next meeting of the board?
Yes, we really need to get this in place in order to start hiring temporary staff for the signal and train control systems.
If I can again interrupt, the Sandy damaged many of our systems, but the most sensitive systems, first of all from a safety perspective, but also in terms of the damage caused by the salt water, is to the signal system. We don't have enough. Our own internal training program for a signal technician is upwards of 18 months. I mean, it takes us time to just train our own personnel. We're just trying to get some extra staff. We've got to address our signal needs. So I would really urge not to delay this.
Well, then could we just have a minimal contract until the next meeting so you can get some of it in and come back at the next meeting with a longer term if that's what you're looking for?
Who's next? Jeff?
Steve, the question is, there are some unanswered issues here, and what we're hearing is if we can pull that information together,
Certainly.
we can move this
Absolutely,
forward on
we can get that to
Wednesday.
you. We can get that information to you.
All right. All right, subject to receiving further information about item number 9-11, which is temporary staffing for signal and train control system projects. Is there any further comments or questions? All in favor of the procurements with that one proviso? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the procurements are carried accordingly. Service changes. Norman, are you still here?
Right here.
Where are you?
Right here.
Oh, okay, there you are.
Hope you can hear me all. In Section 6 of the agenda this month, we have 3 staff summaries. 2 are presented for MTA Bus, and the final action is from New York City Transit, all of which are for committee information. The first staff summary is related to MTA Bus schedule changes. There are 4 MTA Bus schedule changes on 4 routes proposed for implementation in January 2014. This is a continuation of the routine and ongoing bus schedule adjustments in response to changes in ridership to conform to board-approved loading guidelines and associated revised running times that more closely match changes in operating conditions. 2 of the bus schedule changes contain increases in frequency and 2 contain decreases in frequency. The second staff summary recommends the permanent revision of the travel path of the southbound Q25, Q34, and Q65 bus routes as per a recently implemented detour in Jamaica. Operation on this detour has resulted in a decrease in delays due to traffic congestion and improved reliability through the area. This revision would affect 1 bus stop, which has already been temporarily relocated. The northbound travel path would remain unchanged. The final action from New York City Transit is to make permanent the new Q76 bus service on Sundays, an expansion of what existed 6 days a week between Jamaica and 165th Street Bus Terminal and College Point in Queens via Francis Lewis Boulevard. In accordance with service guidelines, this new service was implemented on an experimental basis and was the subject of a public hearing at which all Q76 comments received were supportive of the new Sunday service. The net operational cost associated with Q76 added Sunday service is $300,000 annually. Funding for this service was included in the 2012 Service Enhancement Package approved by the board in July 2012. Are there any questions?
Andrew.
Yeah, Norman, this might be the first time ever that you don't actually spell out what bus routes are getting the increases and the decreases in headways.
Oh, we do in the staff summary, we do. Certainly we do.
But not in our books, though, right?
6.4, Andrew.
The chart that's attached, yeah, 6.4.
Oh, gotta read it. I got it. Okay.
Do you have any questions? I know it's, if you just saw it for the first time, it's kind of quick to
No, that's
digest.
fine. Thanks.
Okay, Chuck?
Standard question. Was the community board notified, and did you have any communication with them concerning the change?
The standard outreach through Government and Community Relations has been done. Yes, I don't believe there's been any response back, but we have the standard outreach letter that goes out with all of our service changes.
Sometimes those letters tend to get there at the same time as the hearing, and my question is, this has been cooking for a while, why can't we establish a practice, unless you already have one, that at least a week or 2 before it hits the board, the community boards are notified?
Well, and the first 2 are not a public hearing item, and that's exactly what is done. It's about, and I'll let Lois Tendler talk to it in greater detail if she's here. Lois, you want to talk to it? The timing of, we do exactly what you just said on the non-public hearing items.
We try to straddle the issue of informing the community boards officially, because these letters usually are the culmination of a process where we have spoken to them several times leading up to an actual action or the appearance of the item on the agenda here. But straddle in between giving official notice to a community board that it's going to be on the board's agenda and giving notice to the board that it's going to be on the board agenda. So on these letters, the Q76, this is probably, it's a culmination of a process.
What's the date of the letter?
The date of the September 12th. And these letters were all faxed as well.
But you see, when did you know this was going to come up? Look, I don't want to belabor the point and drag out this meeting, but I'd like to see if you could do the following, or tell us why not. Can you get the information to the community boards on these changes 2 weeks in advance, so that the community boards can give you input? They are the community's representatives.
I totally concur with that, but at the Q76 letter, this is probably the 4th time we've been to the community board on this. They gave us input at a public hearing. They can give us input at the public hearing. They did give us input at a public hearing, I'm sorry. And this was just tying up the bow, the end of a process.
Commissioner Merdler, if I can interrupt also, it's Bergen again. If I may interrupt again also, I think what Lois was trying to refer to in terms of straddling is that from the staff's perspective, there's the concern of not making an official notification to the public before we notify our own board members. So we have.
Why? The public has a right to know.
But our board members also have a right.
They'll find out. We'll find out when we get the books.
Are we missing the point for a second? This is just the official notification, and it sounds like there's been many conversations with the community board leading up to the official communication.
I have no problem with this
I just want to make sure I
just want
understand.
to establish, if we can, and if it's not inconvenient and absent emergencies, that as a matter of practice, community boards and the borough president or elected officials are notified a couple of weeks in advance.
Commissioner Murphy.
I think the stand.
Commissioner Merdler, let me assure you that since I've been watching over these closely in the last couple of months, I think we have in fact gotten out there as early as possible. We are doing that. I think we're talking by each other here, but I think the interaction you're looking for does in fact take place in almost every case.
And a final point, these service changes don't go into effect the day we notify the board. They're still in the future.
Okay, we have the message, and just remember, I'm a former community board chairman, if that helps to impel you even to greater heights. Okay, all we have left, folks, is status reports, and Dr. H, you got some status reports for us? Where is that?
Section 7.
Regular status report on?
Special reports, you want me to just talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Under special presentations today in your book, Section 7, there are a couple of, there's our regular status report on the MetroCard program, and the following 3 reports, NYC Transit, Staten Island, and MTA Bus, are presented in accordance with MTA's annual budget procedures and results from the July of 2013 financial plan process. The reports presented are monthly allocations of the 2013 mid-year forecast, including revenue, receipts, expenses, expenditures, ridership, and positions. I'd also like to indicate that there are 3 standard follow-up reports in your book in Section 8. The reports include this month for your information. We'll begin with the semi-annual report on service quality indicators, which is presented for both New York City Transit and MTA Bus. That includes passenger environment survey indicators and PES scores for subway cars, subway stations, Staten Island Railway, and buses, along with the semi-annual bus weight assessment results. Also this month we have the elevator and escalator performance report covering the second quarter of 2013. I'm happy to report that in our 2013 quarter 2 elevator escalator availability has exceeded our availability goal for the 7th straight quarter. 24-hour availability for escalators was 96.1%, and for elevators 97.6%. And following the elevator and escalator report, we have the Transit Adjudication Bureau report also covering the second quarter of 2013. The final item in the sections are the New York City Transit and the MTA Bus EEO and diversity reports. Both reports provide EEO and HR data as of the second quarter of 2013.
All right, thank you, Carmen. Anyone who has any questions about any of these reports is always welcome to call Carmen. That's what he is there for. We ready for you, Dr. H? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you now turn the meeting over to Michael Haradnachano, the president of MTA Capital Construction Company, now universally called Dr. H. I don't know from which committee you got that name, but I think everybody uses it.
Probably
Do they not?
from my time as a professor at the university, not from a committee meeting.
Oh,
anyway. Just to try to make it snappy, Fulton Center, we are on schedule to open June 14. We have about 10 months left to complete that. I would like to add that there is additional security work that has been added to a AC, JZ, and 2-3 platform work. And while this will not impact the opening date in June 2014, will extend the substantial completion because that's being added as a change order. So just wanted to make sure that that's noted. I'm going to go to the 7-line extension. We are right now about 92% complete. Although we only are 70% complete on the system work, and that's critical for us to be able to finish. Again, we have about 10 months to complete that. And the work at this point is proceeding well, and we expect to also be opening in June 2014. Let me move to 2nd Avenue. That's a little longer. 2nd Avenue, as you know, is scheduled to be open at the end of 2016, and the work is proceeding well at various locations. 96th Street Station, the site work and heavy civil is 98% complete. We're still struggling with one point. We are underpinning a big building that will eventually become entrance number 1 of the Rainbow and Hardware. And that's, we're taking our time. Want to make sure that it's done properly. The finishes work at that station are moving forward. We're 24% complete there, and we are actually proceeding. The work is proceeding well, and we are on schedule. 86th Street Station covered mining and lining contract is about 64% complete as of September 1st. We completed the excavation in the main cavern, the blasting. We still do have blasting at entrance number 2 that is in front of building Yorkshire, known as Yorkshire, and that's the one that we're still going to have some blasting. We're completing right now, and we are somewhat delayed there, and we're making up time. So the expectation is that we will be able to do that. At the northeast corner of 83rd Street, we transferred the building's load to the new column. This is also, again, a very tall building, and we expect to have an entrance there, so we needed to underpin part of the building at I think it's about 20-some stories tall. So we have been successful completing that work. We have also, in June, awarded the finishes contract for 86th Street, and however, they will not have any access to their work until April of 2014. So the expectation is that they will come at that particular point. 72nd Street Station, we're about close to 90% complete as of September 1st, we have, just as an example, north of 69th Street, all the inverts are 100% complete, the walls 97% complete, and the arch about 64%. South of 69th Street, the inverts are 99% and the arch 75%. We are, at this point, have dismantled one mock house, and we expect to start
the dismantling of the second Mac house at 69th Street in October. Again, the finishes in 72nd Street, no access is available until the end of this month, and at which point we're going to make the site accessible in various locations so the contractor can start their work. 63rd Street, Lexington Avenue, this is about 60% complete, and various parts of the work has been done, and we expect to allowing the track power signal communication system to come in on the heels of the civil work. Just one thing that to mention, we have a community information center between 84th and 85th on the east side, and the first month it was open was visited by about 1,000 people. So we find that there's an encouraging sign that people are actually fully engaged, and we do get a lot of traction on our Saturday tours, as well as the community meetings that we do once a quarter. That's about it.
Thank you, Dr. H. You heard it, folks. The 2nd Avenue Subway Revenue Service will be December 2016. We're taking bets at the end of this table as to whether that will really happen, or whether
I'll give you good odds.
Or whether, well, the main bet is whether it will be before or after the completion of countdown clocks on the B division. We're very divided on that one. Any questions for Dr. H? Any further business to come before the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience.